What happens when the boss becomes invisible? Isaac Zeller muttered to himself as he buckled the strap of the janitor uniform over his shoulder, the stitched name tag reading, Eli. He caught his reflection in the mirror of his truck cab faded navy coveralls, thick-rimmed glasses, salt and pepper beard glued on with spirit gum, and a baseball cap pulled low. He looked nothing like the man who signed the paychecks. 13 office locations. Over 140 employees. Isaac had bought the struggling software and services company 8 years ago when it had only 3 branches and was bleeding cash. He built it into a lean, profitable operation with a strong reputation. But he hadn't stepped foot into the downtown office in almost a year. It wasn't that he didn't care, it was the opposite. Isaac had relied heavily on his district managers and monthly reports to keep things running. Everything on paper looked fine. Profits were steady. Retention was decent. But a few weeks ago, he overheard a conversation between 2 former employees at a coffee shop. They hadn't recognized him. One of them said, "If you're not in the manager's little circle, good luck surviving there." The other replied, "That place killed my confidence." That stuck with him. So here he was posing as a cleaner, assigned by a third-party contractor to the downtown office. No one knew what he looked like in person. He'd never met most of the frontline staff. Corporate kept his identity quiet on purpose, and the janitorial company he worked for had just inked a temporary fill-in contract. Perfect cover. He parked in the back lot, grabbed a mop bucket, and pushed through the service entrance. The front desk receptionist looked up briefly, but didn't greet him. Isaac didn't mind. He was here for the truth, not pleasantries. The office smelled like burnt coffee and copier paper. Open floor layout. Cubicles lined up in rows, glass meeting rooms on the sides. The manager's office had blinds pulled halfway down. He got to work near the break room, slowly pushing the mop across the tile. It didn't take long before he started noticing things. A young woman with frizzy curls and tired eyes was wiping down the counter. She was dressed neatly, but her shoes looked worn. She glanced at him with a soft smile. "Morning." Isaac nodded. "Morning." His voice was gravelly, altered just enough. "You knew?" she asked. "Yeah. Just covering for someone sick." She didn't press. "Well, welcome."
I'm Winnie Varlov.
"I'm in customer support." "Nice to meet you, Winnie," he said, and she returned to restocking the cups. Just then, a voice barked from the hallway. "Winnie, why are you wasting time in the break room? You're not paid to talk to the janitor." A man in his 40s, pressed shirt and tight jaw, stepped in. His nameplate read James, office manager. Winnie flinched. "I was just refilling cups. And now you're done. Let's move." She walked off quickly. James glared at Isaac for a second before walking away without a word. Isaac gripped the mop harder. Over the next 2 hours, he saw it again and again. James snapping at employees, interrupting them mid-sentence, mocking a junior sales rep over a typo in their report in front of 2 colleagues. Isaac watched as people avoided eye contact when the manager walked by. In the late afternoon, he was cleaning near the copy machine when he overheard James talking to another employee inside the manager's office. The door was cracked open. "I don't care if she's top of the metrics," James scoffed. "Winnie looks like she rolled out of a damn Goodwill bin. She's not the kind of face I want clients seeing. I told her to stay off video calls for a reason." Isaac stopped breathing. The employee inside gave a weak laugh.
"Yeah, she's
not really the type."
No.
"She's not. We need people who represent the company, not charity cases." Isaac backed away slowly, heart pounding. He gritted his teeth and walked to the janitor's closet instead of storming in. He wasn't ready yet. He needed to see more. That night, he sat on the edge of his motel bed, staring at the ceiling. His hands were shaking from anger and guilt. He had let this happen under his watch. How many people had been crushed under James's heel without him knowing? He thought about what the woman at the coffee shop had said. "That place killed my confidence."
He believed it now.
The next day, he returned at 7 a.m. before most of the staff arrived. He set out to clean the conference room early, but really, he just wanted to observe again. By 8:30, the office was buzzing. Winnie came in holding a folder and a cup of coffee. She looked tired. Isaac walked by and said, "Rough morning." She blinked. "How could you tell?" He shrugged. "I've had a few myself." She smiled faintly, then looked at the folder. "I was up all night prepping a pitch for a client demo. James said I could present if it was good enough." Isaac raised an eyebrow. "And is it?" She hesitated. "I think so. I hope so." A few minutes later, James passed by her desk. She stood and held out the folder. "This is the pitch for the new client demo you mentioned?" He barely looked at it. "Yeah, I changed my mind. I'm presenting it myself. We'll use your slides, though." Winnie blinked. "But you said—" "I said what I needed to get it done. You're not ready to be the face of anything. Focus on what you're good at." Isaac's stomach turned. He clenched his fists tight behind his back. That afternoon, he watched James joke about an employee's accent in the break room, mock a guy's weight behind his back, and roll his eyes when Winnie asked a follow-up question in a meeting. It was no longer a question of gathering evidence. It was a question of timing. Isaac had seen enough. But he wasn't going to just walk in and fire the man. He was going to make sure the entire office saw why. Isaac arrived just after dawn the following morning, unlocking the back entrance with a temporary badge he'd been issued through the janitorial contractor. The place was still dark, save for the faint hum of the vending machines and the glow of emergency exit signs. He sat alone in the staff kitchen, nursing a lukewarm cup of vending machine coffee, planning his next move. Yesterday had confirmed what he feared. James wasn't just a bad manager, he was a corrosive force. Isaac had no doubt others in the office were affected, but he needed a clearer picture. One person's mistreatment was enough to act on, but Isaac wanted clarity on the full scope before pulling the pin. By 7:30, people began trickling in. A man with a limp in his left leg shuffled past him, balancing 2 laptops and a file box. Isaac stood up. "Need a hand with that?" The man paused, surprised.
Ah.
"Sure, thanks." Isaac took the box from him and followed him to a desk near the far wall.
"Name's Eli," he said.
"Filling in on janitorial." "Ronan," the man replied with a nod. "I'm IT. Well, part of it. The rest of the team's remote now." "All of them?"
"Yeah.
"Just me here in person. Makes it easier for James, I guess. Fewer people to trip over, fewer opinions." Isaac didn't respond. He helped set the laptops down, then noticed the man's knee brace. "You alright carrying all this every day?" Ronan chuckled bitterly. "I asked for a rolling cart. James said the budget didn't allow for luxuries." Isaac clenched his jaw. "That sounds short-sighted."
"Yeah, well."
"That's James." Ronan sat down slowly, wincing slightly. "I keep my head down. Easier that way." Isaac gave him a quiet nod and returned to the hallway. By mid-morning, he had taken up a post outside the supply room, pretending to inventory the cleaning equipment. From there, he could overhear conversations without drawing attention. A small group had gathered near the printer, 2 junior analysts and a customer service rep. One of the analysts sighed. "I got asked to redo the entire report because James didn't like the font." The other shook her head. "He made me stay an extra 2 hours last night reformatting the dashboard because he wanted the graphs to feel more aggressive."
"I don't even know what that means."
The customer service rep leaned in. "He told a client that I was just the help when I introduced myself on a call. The guy emailed me an apology afterward." Isaac watched them disperse, all 3 with their shoulders slightly hunched. Not one of them looked over 30. No one should be worn down like that so early in their careers. Later, while vacuuming under desks in the open workspace, Isaac spotted Winnie typing quickly, eyes locked on the screen. Her phone buzzed, and she answered it quietly. "Yes, I did update the ticket notes." "No, I didn't skip protocol. I documented everything in the CRM." "I understand that, but the client said." She paused. "Okay, I'll redo it."
"Yes."
"Right away." She hung up without another word and exhaled slowly, rubbing her temples. Isaac didn't interrupt. But a few minutes later, she stepped away from her desk and walked toward the fire escape stairwell. He waited 30 seconds before following, careful to move quietly. She stood just inside the door, away from the cameras, arms crossed tightly over her chest. Her eyes were glassy. She wasn't crying, just holding everything in like someone who'd done it too many times before. Isaac leaned on his mop. "You all right?" She didn't startle. She just looked at him and let out a small breath. "Just needed a second." "Rough call." She let out a dry laugh. "It's not even the clients. It's the way James talks to us. Like we're disposable." Isaac nodded. "I've heard him around." Winnie tilted her head. "You've been listening. I notice things. You finish every shift cleaning up after everyone else, then get talked to like you're in the way." She looked at him, surprised. "Why does that bother you?" "Because people like you are why companies survive. And people like him are why they rot." Winnie didn't reply right away. Then, quietly, "We used to have team meetings every Friday. We'd share wins from the week. They stopped a few months after James took over. Said it was a waste of time." Isaac folded his arms. "No more team recognition?" "Only if you're in his inner circle. Then you get praise. Otherwise, you're lucky if he remembers your name." The stairwell door opened suddenly. A man stuck his head in, saw Winnie, and froze. "James is asking for you," he said, then glanced briefly at Isaac and left. Winnie sighed. Back to it. Isaac waited until she was gone before stepping back into the hallway. He didn't bother finishing his assigned cleaning route. Instead, he walked straight to the records room. He had seen where James kept the locked cabinet. Only managers had access, but Isaac had quietly lifted the keycard from a forgotten stack on the break room table earlier that morning when James left it unattended. Inside the cabinet were printed performance reviews, incident reports, and internal complaints. Isaac flipped through them, scanning fast. Winnie's file was thick. Not with discipline, but with copied client commendations and customer satisfaction scores. Every metric was strong. But none of it had been flagged for recognition. He found a complaint filed 3 months ago by a junior employee alleging verbal harassment during a one-on-one. It was marked, "Resolved, no action required," in James's handwriting. There were 4 more like it, all closed with no follow-up. Then he found a folder labeled Contractor Evaluation. Inside were notes about Ronan, including a line that read, "Unfit image for front-facing roles. Recommend off-site transition." Isaac's stomach turned. He returned everything to the drawer, locked it, and shoved the keycard deep into his pocket. That afternoon, he skipped his cleaning shift and sat alone in the back stairwell, calling his assistant from a burner phone he'd picked up earlier in the week. When she answered, he kept it brief. "I need the full HR audit for the downtown office. Unfiltered. And I want a list of every promotion and turnover from the past 18 months. Don't tell anyone why." He hung up before she could ask questions. The rest of the day passed slowly. James spent most of it in his office, blinds drawn. A few times, he emerged to bark something at an employee or critique a slide deck in front of others. No one challenged him. The office had learned to keep their heads down. By 5:30, most of the staff had cleared out. Isaac stayed behind, cleaning the conference room. Winnie was still at her desk, headphones in, typing furiously. Ronan limped past, waving goodbye with 2 fingers. Isaac gave a quiet nod. James walked by without acknowledging anyone, coat over one shoulder, car keys in hand. As he passed Winnie, he said, "Don't forget to update the client logs before you leave. I don't want excuses tomorrow."
She didn't respond.
Just kept typing. Isaac waited until James was gone. Then he walked over. "You always stay this late?" She glanced up. "Only when someone else's job depends on it." He tilted his head. "What do you mean?" She hesitated, then said, "James told the team yesterday that if our department didn't meet numbers this quarter, he'd recommend layoffs. But he cut 3 of our support staff last month, so now everyone's covering double the tickets." Isaac frowned. "That doesn't sound like a performance issue. That sounds like sabotage." She didn't argue. Isaac looked around the empty floor. "You ever think about leaving?" "All the time," she said. "But I need the paycheck." I've got my sister's tuition to cover. And I don't want to walk away without proving I was worth something. You shouldn't have to prove that to people like him. She gave a tired smile. You're the nicest janitor I've ever met. Isaac chuckled. I've been told that once or twice. That night, he sat in his motel room reviewing everything he had seen, heard, and read. The picture was complete now. The damage was deeper than he thought. Tomorrow he would return. But not in coveralls. Not with a mop. Tomorrow, he would walk in wearing his own name. The next morning, Isaac walked through the front entrance of the downtown office just before 9. No mop, no coveralls. He wore a tailored navy jacket, silver-framed eyeglasses, and a plain black shirt. His beard was gone. His name badge clipped to his chest read, Isaac Zeller, founder and CEO. The receptionist stood up, so fast her chair rolled backward. He gave a polite nod. Good morning. Could you let James know I'm here to meet with the full team in the conference room? 10 minutes. She opened her mouth, but no sound came out. He didn't wait. He walked directly through the office, past the rows of desks. A few employees looked up, puzzled. Some glanced at each other, trying to place the man who now walked with quiet purpose through their workspace. Isaac reached the large glass-walled conference room and opened both doors. He left them wide. Then he stood at the head of the table and waited. Word traveled quickly. Within minutes, people began filing in, unsure of what exactly was happening. Winnie entered cautiously, clutching a notepad. Ronan came in next, limping slightly, eyebrows furrowed. By the time James stepped through the door, nearly every chair was filled. The rest stood along the walls. James paused when he saw Isaac. His voice was flat. Can I ask who you're waiting for? Isaac gestured to the room. They're already here. James stared at him, confused. Then his eyes narrowed. I'm sorry, but... You're not sorry, Isaac said calmly. And you know who I am, so let's not waste time. Silence fell like a dropped brick. Isaac scanned the room. My name is Isaac Zeller. I founded this company. Some of you may know me from a welcome email or a signature on your ID badge. But most of you probably haven't seen me in person.
He paused.
That's on me. A few people shifted, unsure where this was going. James remained frozen at the far end of the table. Isaac continued. For the past several days, I've been working here under a different name. I came in as a janitor. Not because I had nothing better to do, but because I stopped trusting numbers and reports to tell me what was happening in this office. He looked directly at James. And I was right to stop. James opened his mouth. Isaac raised a hand. You'll have a chance to speak. But not first. He turned back to the staff. I saw things I never should have seen in any company, let alone mine. I watched employees belittled in public. I listened as someone's appearance was mocked behind closed doors. I saw people afraid to ask questions, scared to leave their desks, and working under threats that didn't come from clients, but from leadership. He reached into his coat pocket and placed a printed sheet on the table. This is a list of internal complaints filed over the past year. I reviewed every one of them last night. Most were dismissed by James without any formal follow-up. That stops today. James stepped forward, voice tight. You don't know the full context of those situations. Managing people sometimes means making hard calls. You can't expect. Isaac cut him off. Is calling someone a charity case a hard call? Is telling a team member they shouldn't appear on client calls because of how they look a leadership decision? James's face lost its color. That's hearsay. No, Isaac said evenly. That was you. I heard it. I also saw you reject a pitch without reading it. I watched you humiliate junior employees in front of their peers. And I read your exact words recommending someone be transitioned out because of their physical appearance. Gasps rippled through the room. No one tried to interrupt. Isaac stepped closer. You've built a culture of fear. You've made people feel small for not fitting into your narrow mold of who deserves respect. That's not leadership. That's cowardice dressed as authority. James's voice cracked. I built performance. I got results. No, Isaac said. Your team got results. In spite of you, not because of you. He turned to the room again. I've spoken to many of you quietly over the past few days. I know who's doing the real work here. The people who stay late without being asked. The ones who fix problems before they reach clients. The ones who carry twice the weight since their teammates were let go without complaint, without recognition. Winnie stood near the back wall, her arms crossed tightly.
She didn't look surprised.
Just resolute. Isaac took a breath. Here's what's happening next. He turned to James. You're relieved of your position, effective immediately. HR will follow up with formal paperwork. You'll be escorted out after this meeting. James stared at him, stunned. You can't just. I can. And I am. A building security officer appeared in the doorway. Isaac hadn't asked, but someone must have called. James looked around the room, waiting for someone to come to his defense. No one spoke. He slowly walked out, face burning. After a long moment, Isaac turned back to the staff.
His voice softened.
I don't expect one meeting to undo everything you've been through. And I know trust isn't rebuilt in a speech. But I want to start here. He looked at Winnie. You should have been leading that client demo. From now on, you'll have the authority to take lead roles on projects where you've done the prep. No more shadow work. She blinked, then nodded once. He turned to Ronan. You're getting a rolling cart before the end of the day. And I want to talk about bringing in part-time assistants so you're not handling hardware logistics alone. Ronan gave a slow nod, still processing. Isaac addressed the whole room. I'm appointing an interim office lead, a peer, not a manager. Someone you can go to who won't bury your concerns. HR will oversee the selection. And next month I'll be back. Not with a camera crew or a press release.
Just me. Quietly.
Randomly. No more distance between the people who run this company and the people who own it. He paused. You deserve better. And I'm going to make sure you get it. He stepped back from the table. You're dismissed for the morning. Take the next few hours.
Breathe. Talk. Get coffee together.
This office has been silent for too long. No one moved for a beat. Then slowly, someone clapped. Then another. It wasn't loud or showy. Just real. As people began to file out, Isaac remained behind. He watched as small groups formed. People talking again. Not whispering. Not looking over their shoulders. Winnie approached him slowly.
You didn't have to do any of this, she said.
I did, Isaac replied. I just waited too long. She looked at him steadily. A lot of people wouldn't have come back at all. I'm not most people, he said. She nodded once and walked away. Outside, rain had started to fall. The city moved on, unaware of what had just shifted inside that building. Isaac stood at the window, watching the sidewalk fill with umbrellas. For the first time in months, he didn't feel like a stranger in his own company. He didn't know every name yet, but he would. And next time he walked into one of his offices, he wouldn't need a mop to see the truth. 3 weeks later, Isaac Zeller stood quietly just inside the newly repainted break room, holding a mug with the company's original logo, one he hadn't seen in circulation for years. Across the room, a cluster of employees were gathered around a table, talking over notebooks and laptops. The energy in the office was different. Not louder, not forced. Just lighter. The morning had started with a simple internal memo titled New Standards, outlining clear structural changes. It was written in Isaac's voice, direct, measured, and without corporate fluff. It introduced a new feedback mechanism that bypassed the chain of command entirely and went straight to a small committee made up of both corporate and floor-level employees. It wasn't a suggestion box. It was a formal channel with tracked accountability. The memo also confirmed that James's position would not be filled in its previous form. Instead of a singular office manager, they were piloting a 2-person leadership model, one to manage operations and one to oversee people and culture. For now, both would be interim hires, drawn from inside the team. Isaac stepped out into the open floor, walking slowly past workstations. No one tensed. A few people looked up, nodded, and went back to their tasks. It was progress. He stopped at a desk near the far corner, where Ronan was adjusting a monitor. A rolling cart sat behind him, stacked with cables and tools. "How's the new setup working?" Isaac asked. Ronan turned, nodded once. "Less strain. I can move everything in one trip." "You still the only one handling hardware?" "For now," Ronan replied. "But Winnie's been helping coordinate remote orders. Cuts down how much I need to prep on site." Isaac followed his gaze to where Winnie stood near the newly designated project board, pinning up task cards. She was in conversation with two other employees, gesturing toward a client roadmap with a dry erase marker in hand. She looked confident, composed, but not rehearsed. "You think she's ready to lead a team?" Isaac asked, keeping his voice low. Ronan didn't answer immediately. Then he said, "She already is." Isaac gave a nod and walked over. Winnie turned as he approached. She didn't straighten up or shift her expression. Just stepped slightly aside, so he could see the board if he wanted to. "We've been mapping out the support queue bottlenecks," she said. "I think we can restructure the escalation process without hiring immediately if we rotate ticket triage across the team." "You'll need buy-in from the others for that," Isaac replied.
"I asked them," she said.
"They proposed it. I'm just organizing it." He looked at the names and color-coded tabs across the board. "And what happens if someone has a weak day? Or gets sick? We've built in overflow hours. Not overtime, just flex within the weekly schedule. Nothing changes unless everyone agrees." Isaac leaned in slightly. "And they trust the plan?" "They trust each other more than they trust any plan," she said. "That's new." He studied the board for another moment, then stepped back. "You're not waiting for permission anymore."
"I'm adapting," she said.
"We all are." He gave a quiet nod and turned to the small group behind her. "I need a few words with the full staff. 5 minutes. No slides. Just voices." Word spread quickly. No formal meeting was called. People simply gathered near the open area between the support pods and the finance corner. Some leaned against desks. Others stood with arms folded, waiting not with suspicion, but curiosity. Isaac stepped into the center of the group, hands in his pockets. "I've seen companies recover from terrible leadership," he said. "But recovery is not the same as healing. Healing takes longer. It's not about fixing what happened. It's about making sure it doesn't happen again." He didn't pace. He didn't raise his voice. "I'm not here to hand out promises. I'm here to ask something harder. I need every person in this room to stay honest, not just with me, but with each other. This kind of honesty isn't about calling out mistakes. It's about refusing to let silence protect dysfunction."
He paused.
No one shifted. "You were failed by someone who should have never had the influence he did. I let that happen. I own that. But you still showed up. You still did the work. That tells me this place is still worth something." He stepped back slightly, letting the silence stretch. "The only thing I ask going forward is this: if something feels off, say it. If someone's carrying too much, speak up. If you're burning out, tell someone before you collapse. We fix things early, or they break for good." He gave a small nod. "That's it." The group didn't applaud. That wasn't what he was looking for. Instead, people turned to each other, some with quiet agreement, others already discussing open tasks. Winnie approached after the crowd had dispersed. She wasn't smiling, but her eyes were steady. "You're not putting someone like James in charge again," she said, not as a question.
"No," Isaac replied.
"And if I ever start sounding like him, I expect someone to call me on it." She nodded once, then turned and walked back to her team. Isaac spent the rest of the afternoon moving between departments. Not monitoring, just being present. He sat in on a product review session led by 2 junior analysts. He joined a 5-minute stand-up with the remote support team, visible only through a wall-mounted screen. No one filtered their questions. No one deferred unnecessarily. Later that evening, the office began to empty out. People packed bags without glancing over their shoulders. Desks shut down on time. Voices didn't drop when the clock ticked past 6. Isaac stood alone near the front entrance, watching as the last few lights dimmed. The receptionist, now replaced with a new hire named Liza, walked by, coat over her arm. "You're still here?" she asked. Just finishing something, he said. She tilted her head slightly. You're not bad at this, you know. At what? Being around without being in the way. He smiled faintly. I've had practice. She left without another word. Isaac turned back toward the office floor. A few monitors still glowed faintly. The project board near Winnie's desk had new cards pinned on it, tasks for the upcoming product sprint, handwritten notes from team members, a sticky note in the corner that read, "Don't forget to breathe." He walked over and looked at it for a long moment. Then he turned off the lights and locked the door behind him. He didn't need to be undercover anymore. The truth was already in the open. And from here, it would stay that way.